Today is Monday, March 2nd, 2026 at 5 p.m. This is the Community Life and Public Safety Committee meeting. If everyone would stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
All right. Well, Serrero.
Here.
Ermeline is excused. Beck. Here. Clark.
Here.
Shawanka.
Present.
Milky.
Here.
And Olson.
Thank you. Public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to give public comment? Please give your name and address and limit your comments to about 5 minutes.
My name is Ryan Milbeck. I'm not gonna provide my address because it's not required. Couple issues I want to speak about today. The first thing is, I noticed you guys have the agenda, the speed limit on Weston Ave, between Camp Phillips and Ryan Street. I believe it's being proposed to go to 45 miles an hour from what I understood, from what I read. That's what should happen. It's been that way for ever since I've been a kid, so I think it's way too slow now. There's not enough traffic there. If you go down to Ross Ave here, that's 35 miles an hour. There's tons of driveways. Whereas you go down that specific street, there's barely any driveways, so that's the only thing on that. I'm here specifically for one of your ordinances. It's 802.107. I made 5 copies, so I can hand those out when I'm done with what I have in front of me. But I didn't know there were this many people here, so I didn't make a bunch of them. 802.107 is your winter parking regulations, and they are void. The way that they're currently written, they are unenforceable as written, and they cannot be enforced. I have already mentioned this to the police department, who has been very non-transparent, to the point where I would also request that we look into finding a new police chief for the Metropolitan Police Department, but that'll be a side note at the end. The ordinance states as follows: when signs have been erected at or regionally near the village limits as provided in WIS Stat 349.13, alternate side parking shall be in effect on all streets between the hours of 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. of any day from October 31st to May 1st. And then it goes on to talk about how you switch the streets, depending on the day of the week. And it talks about official signs, and it talks about how those signs have been erected at the, essentially the corporate limits. So under Wisconsin statute 349.13, there's only 3 things that the village is allowed to do when there is signs erected at the corporate limits. And those 3 things are very specific in 349.13. And I have printed off with a handout. And those limitations are 24-hour, you can limit parking for 24 hours. You can limit parking between midnight and 7 a.m. or you can limit parking for snow emergencies. So your ordinance says 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's outside of the time frames that's allowed, and your ordinance is void. There is no, we'll look into it, it's void. So I already had 1 parking ticket for this. The police department voided it out. It wasn't Jeremy who did that. It was one of the sergeants there. I then brought a notice because I got another parking ticket after I was told I'd be left alone about this. And that's also included in the paperwork I have here. Long story short, it's a void ordinance. It cannot be enforced. It's void. This is not a sovereign entity. You guys are of delegated powers. I don't know what you guys all know because I do a lot of legal work. I don't know your backgrounds. But this is a municipality. It only has the police powers that are delegated to it by the state. That's also mentioned in the home rule under the Constitution for Wisconsin. And this is beyond the powers that this board has. It's acting outside of those bounds. And so this ordinance needs to be struck down immediately. I mean, I'm trying to pursue this in court, but the municipal court has been stonewalling me. They don't even want to hear the case. So I'll go on to that point next. So I have here a notice that I provided to the police department. It's gonna, again, I only have 5 copies, so you guys can distribute this how you need to. But inside this notice, I go through kind of what I talked about, how this ordinance is void and why it's void. And then what happened is I got this 2nd parking ticket, and the first thing I did is I drafted this quick little notice, took me a couple minutes. I went to the municipal court. I don't know if anyone can give me an answer to this. Do you guys have any control over municipal court? Do you guys provide the funding? Do you guys hire staff there? Can anyone answer any of that?
We don't, in public
it-
comment, we don't engage back
I
and forth.
understand, but like, is Heather Heiser employed by the village as a whole, or are they employed by the state? To me, it's very important to know the answer to that. It's a simple.
They are not employed by the Village of Weston.
Yeah, okay. So what happened is I got the parking ticket, I brought the notice to the court. I was given a judicial hearing or court hearing for challenging the validity of the ordinance, which is really where this should have gone. I didn't want to have to come to this meeting and do this. I don't mind doing it, but. So I had a hearing scheduled. The ticket was actually placed on my work truck. So I work for Permar Security. And they placed it on my work truck. So what happened was, ticket was on my work truck. I brought the ticket into the municipality because specifically on the ticket, there is no way to contest the issue. So when you get a parking ticket, and I have this little snippet here, it says, you have violated the following traffic ordinance. Basically, it says you pay within 5 days and we're charging you more money. It doesn't say if you want to contest this, please contact the court. That's a violation of due process. So we need to also address that as well. You cannot give somebody an executive order, which is what a police issued citation is. It's an executive order to pay something and not give somebody the ability to test that. Otherwise, it's a violation of due process. We all have a right to be heard. We all have a right to a fair hearing by a judge or jury, depending on what the situation is. And this ticket is completely unconstitutional the way they're issued on the vehicles. So after this was done, I got the notice to the court. I brought the same notice into the police department and gave it to Captain Aldrich.
Mr. Melbeck, you have 30 seconds remaining.
Can I have an extension of a minute, please?
Okay, sir.
Appreciate it. So, after I was, given this to the police department, the following week, I called in to verify my court hearing was still good. And the clerk of court, Heather Heiser, went out of her way to contact my employer and solicit money from them, even though they're not liable under the ordinance. The ordinance specifically says the person who parks or the person who parks shall be held liable, which I was the person who allegedly had violated the ordinance, so that'd be me. So what happened was the municipal court actually committed fraud in order to get you guys $10. So I did file a lawsuit against her and the municipal court, currently pending at this point, but I believe you guys should be able to address this issue very quickly. The ordinance is void as written, and again, if I get another ticket at this point, you guys have noticed I can sue every single one of you in your individual capacity for acting outside of the scope of your office. So,
If you want to provide us with whatever you prepared, and
I can take it.
Is there anybody else that would like to provide public comment? Anybody else for public comment? All right, moving on. Minutes from January 5th, 2026, the regular meeting. What's your pleasure?
I have one correction.
Sure.
On page 10, there was a couple of voting items and it says like, yes, 6, but that's not really what happened. I don't know if you can kind of scroll down. You see where it says vote yes, 6, and there's a couple of no's in there. So I don't know that those two lines align.
Are you talking about page 10 of the
Yeah.
packet?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
with
the.
the notes. Do you know what I'm saying? What I'm
Yes,
saying? It's,
yeah, no
I don't
votes
think it's
should
a
be
huge
marked as
deal,
true.
but
And then, do you see that, Valerie?
I'm sorry, what?
The calculation is just wrong for that item. It should mark 2 no's,
Oh,
I see.
4 yeses, 1 not voting.
I just don't know how big of a deal that is. I saw that. I just,
The one above it is the same.
There's 2 of them in a row there.
it's one, there's 2.
Yeah. We can make that correction before we post it.
Thank you.
Do you want to vote on approving with those corrections?
Can we?
Yeah.
Is that fine with everybody?
Mhm.
All right. With those corrections noted, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Olson.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll jump to new business, item number 9. Discussion and or action on amendments to chapter 82 traffic and vehicles, article 6, speed limits.
Yeah, I guess I was not present here, I believe at the January meeting. We did have 2 other written comments, correspondences that I guess weren't noted, they're in the packet, but weren't hyperlinked. But two residents on Weston Avenue itself, so pages 13 and 14 of the packet, where emails were received from them. I know that was a question that was asked, like, just a little background to it. Some of this is about Weston Avenue, and then holistically, I guess, the speed limit ordinance in general. But for Weston Ave itself, as we went through the Weston Avenue corridor plan and the various neighborhood meetings with the residents there, the speed on the roadway was a concern that they brought up at every meeting. Particularly for the area west of Ryan Street, where there are other houses there. And that was used then when the design criteria for the road was created. So the portion west of Ryan Street was designed essentially as a 35-mile roadway, whereas the portion east of Ryan Street was designed as a 45. 50 and 40 are used as the design speeds, but based on the DOT process, you create the design speed based on 5 miles an hour more than what you would be signing the roadway at. So I guess, I don't know if there's any other background. It seemed like there's a couple other questions that maybe people weren't able to get answered in January there. And then as I was looking through the rest of the ordinance, there's other streets that popped up that, what the ordinance says and what the signage on the roadway says don't quite match. Nick Avenue was one that came to mind. And then we have other streets that we don't have a speed limit on, but are listed as 55 miles per hour, like Kamichik Street. I don't think anyone realistically would be going 55 down that road, but you could. And then we had other streets as I went through the ordinance that exist here in the village of Weston, but just weren't listed as a roadway. There is kind of a catch-all in the ordinance that says if it's primarily a residential street, it's 25, and I forget what it says. If it's not a residential street, maybe it's 35, but I guess just figured if we're gonna clean up or try to look at the ordinance, make sure we added streets as they became streets, like Green Pastures Lane is a new one within the Hinter Springs subdivision. And a couple streets that got added in the kind of early to mid 2000s were missing as well, like the Heritage Hills subdivision there.
Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about, we talked about this at Public Works and just how, I know at the last meeting, we talked about that there would be a referral made to Public Works and how that conversation went, and then we came back here.
Public Works essentially said this seemed like a discussion that the Public Safety Committee should be having. They'll essentially put the signs up.
They shared they're in charge of road design.
Yeah, they're in
Road
charge of the road
construction.
design and
Yes,
construction.
yeah, so they felt more appropriately where public safety is involved, that's where speed limit should be handled.
And I guess I think I mentioned it in here too. I mean, if we go through and truly go at, where our turning conflicts exist, where our other items, I mean, there's Shorey Avenue between Huron and County Road X, or at least Woodland and County Road X. There's a section there where there's several driveways, so there's other streets there where if we retroactively look at this, we probably would be like, oh, maybe we should be changing that roadway limit as well. So sometimes traffic volume matters. We don't have, the highest traffic volume on Shorey as compared to Weston Avenue. I know everybody drives on it. Everybody has a different opinion on what a speed should be, but the neighbors at all the Weston Ave meetings were generally wanted the speed reduced, just because as they go get their mailboxes, they're, cleaning out the end of their driveway. If they want to walk down the road, people fly through there, generally 10 miles an hour, if not more higher. So they were appreciative of trying to keep it lower. So
two things I wanted to mention. One, Kramer Lane, there's just a small spelling error under Avenue for us. Nick Avenue, I was emailing Michael about this. So Nick Avenue is a border road with Cronewater. And from Huron to Pine Road, it's posted as 35 miles an hour. And from Pine Road West, it's posted as 25 miles an hour. And Pine Road, or I'm sorry, Nick Avenue going west from Pine Road is a little bit different. It's more of a residential, very narrow street, headed down to the dead end. So my recommendation would be, if the rest of the committee, you can chime in too, we keep Nick Avenue as 35 miles an hour between Pine Road and Huron, but then 25 miles an hour from Pine Road to the terminus. And if you're not familiar, Nick Avenue is just a continuation of Pine Road to Huron. It's kind of one continuous roadway. So while it's two segments of the same road, they're kind of different. If that makes sense. I don't know if any of you have thoughts on that. Outside of that, do you have thoughts on any of the other streets?
My only question is like, when we change the street speeds, do you have to put a notice out to the residents that we're changing them? So that I know you're gonna ask a question, you're gonna get 1,000 different answers, but do we have to, notice of, here are the streets that we're gonna be changing, if you have any concerns, this is the meeting you need to come to, or do we just change them and we change them?
Yeah, I mean, Weston Avenue is the one that realistically the only street that is changing, I guess, from what it was signed historically. I guess I'd say that part of Weston Avenue has also been under construction for the last 2 years, so when it reopened, we did have kind of reduced speed signs and like I said, if people were, the residents particularly there who came to the meetings knew it was, was discussed, it was gonna be reduced. I guess we didn't put anything else necessarily out to the public at large, but if we need to do something for that, we can just to notice it a little better. The other changes in here is just kind of matching the ordinance to what is signed out there currently.
Right, and that I get, I just didn't know if we're changing that for up or down, if those particular roads, if we have to give notice or anything like that.
I don't think there's a requirement.
I mean, we've talked before that if it's changed more than 10, you have to do the speed study, and the speed study isn't sent to the residents, but that would be a publicly noticed item that you'd be having the speed study and then the report back and the recommendation from it, so it would be a series of meetings, but there wouldn't be like an individual letter that would go out otherwise. It could, but there isn't a requirement, I guess.
The design study that AECom did prior for the design of Weston Ave is what was used to determine the speed limit there. So that constitutes the speed study on Weston Ave.
Any other items under this the committee would like to discuss? Katrina, anything from you?
I would, being on a road that lots of people are used to, having it had been 45 and it was dropped down to 35, I can appreciate the pain in the reduced speed. But I think if the road was designed to be a 35-mile-an-hour road, that's what we should leave it at.
Thank you, Katrina. I agree. I think it's important we listen to the people that live in that neighborhood where this road affects them directly. And I also think it's important we listen to the experts that built the road. So, any other discussion on this? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion. And I guess I would just ask if you're willing to include those changes that I proposed in your motion.
Are we only voting that section or
It would be the entire
the
ordinance.
entire?
Yep. Yep.
Well, I'll make a motion. I move. Let me just pull up the actual meeting
Yeah,
here.
that's what I was,
Yeah.
scroll.
A lot of scrolling. I move we approve, chapter 82.600 as presented with the following two corrections that were discussed
Regarding Nick Avenue,
regarding Nick Avenue and the spelling change.
Kramer Lane.
Thank you. I make the motion. Is there a second to my motion?
I second.
Second from Clark. Is there any discussion on that motion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10, discussion and or action, removal of no parking restrictions on Alta Verde south of Jelinek Avenue and Alderson Street along Kennedy Park.
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of two different topics, but somewhat the same. The which maybe need to be revisited anyways, but Alta Verde Street south of Jelinek Ave currently has these signs that are up that say no parking. Essentially October 31st to May 1st on the entire roadway. This is different than the rest of the neighborhood where I guess the other winter parking regulations are in place, which sounds like we may need to revisit. I guess one of those questions that came up was just, is there a need to keep Alta Verde that way? Kind of talking with staff, it seems like historically those signs were put up during the school year as students were parking on the roadway as an alternate to parking in the senior high parking lot. The Green Heck Turner Center there now. Doesn't appear that there's really a whole lot of people. Not a great way for students to try to cut through in that back way anyways. And so with students parking there during school, it was hard to plow it. So really that was the impetus between a different kind of winter parking rule in that area. And then Alderson Street along Kennedy Park. It's maybe somewhat similar. Again, talking with staff, back when that was a varsity soccer field, that area was restricted for parking. Not sure if that was just to help keep soccer balls, if somebody was running after one, there was better visibility and you didn't have a kid darting out from a parked car. But, with in particular, looking at this summer, the Jelinek Alderson intersection will be closed for a roundabout construction. And local traffic, if they know where they're going, would likely use Joseph and Delikowski to kind of bypass that area to get from Jelinek to Alderson or vice versa. So Joseph is a very narrow street just on the east side there. And if parking's restricted on Alderson, I could see if there is, people trying to get to the farmer's market or other events at Kennedy Park, they start parking down those side streets, which is going to be tough to maneuver through with how narrow those are. The roadway on Alderson is adequate where if we allowed parking again on the west side, you could drive past, 2 lanes of traffic would have at least 13 feet to pass each other. And then we'd still probably restrict parking, say south of where like the shelter area is. So vehicles would still be able to turn around and head back north on Alderson Street. If anyone's driven past Mount Olive Church on a Sunday or some Wednesday nights, they already park on Alderson Street south of Jelinek, and traffic still flows, north and south past those vehicles, which it's roughly the same width as Alderson north of Jelinek there. So I think it's just trying to look out for ways we could maybe help keep the congestion at bay here this summer and potentially long term.
Yeah, I actually got concerned when last summer, when I was seeing like people park along there and you see kids run across Alderson to get to the park because they're parking on the other side. And I would almost rather them be parking along the park so they don't have. Committee, any discussion on this?
No, I had to draw a little map because I'm terrible with directions.
Sure.
So the two questions I had, the Alderson, is that gonna be permanent or is that just right now until that roundabout is done? Cause there's not gonna be a lot of traffic. Cause there's enough distance, like you said, that you can have the 2 lanes and the parking, but I know that's a super busy road. So is that something that you'd be looking on a permanent structure like basis? We're gonna do that, or is that just right now to kind of help through the roundabout and the parking?
I think we could look at doing it long-term. I think the majority of people who would park there would be going to Kennedy, so they're not gonna be crossing the street. I mean, there's streets in downtown Wausau or many other metro, area where you do have parking on both sides of the road, or at least one side of the road, and, cars going past you. So I think, it is 25 on Alderson. People should be going, should be, so.
Well, I've been asking about the parking for a while, so I'm
Yeah.
glad to see you open it up. And Alta Verde, I definitely think you can, I mean, I walk all of these roads, there's really no reason why. It's the south side, so the other, I don't see why you can't open that up really.
Yeah,
Unless residents had an issue or anybody else here had an issue, but I think definitely you could leave that open.
yeah, and somebody thought the parking maybe was for softball games, but looking at when it's restricted, it's only restricted till May 1st. So I mean, softball games are happening in May and June at the softball field off of, the kind of end of Everest and Alta Verde there. The no parking signs really aren't doing anything for that anyway, so.
Correct. Yeah. Would we line up, would we like mark the parking lines where people could park? Or is that like, if we're gonna do that long term and for right now, we don't mess with it?
Yeah, I guess if we want to, we can, we can try it without and see if that becomes erratic or if we want to just, it wouldn't take much to put, a 10-foot line. I mean, it might be 40 some lines, but it wouldn't be horrible. Might be helpful too. We might have to slightly move the center line over too, just to make sure we don't squeeze the, I guess, southbound traffic.
You see how people do it this year, the construction gets done, and then if we find it's an issue, then.
Correct.
Year.
But yeah.
Any other discussion from the committee?
I would just add, in my opinion, if we're talking about the parking, I would just advocate for making it permanent at this point because of the increased use that we expect to see at Kennedy Park. And in my experience, when you let people park without parking lines, they take up a car and a half worth of space. And I think if we want to maximize the parking and if we're going to have it long term, I think it would just make a lot of sense to go ahead and mark the lines. Because we're going to have to do something to mark out, like you can't park within however many feet of the driveways. If there's a fire hydrant there, and then with the construction where people have to stop parking. And if we're going to do all of that work while we're there, why don't we just stripe the parking spaces?
Great, thank you, Katrina. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, I would enter the motion. Anybody have a motion?
I will make a motion to go ahead with the no parking as it's written.
You would like to keep no parking?
Go ahead with changing it to parking on both those streets.
Oh,
Sorry.
To remove the parking restrictions? Okay. All right, do I have a second to that?
Are we doing it in one motion for both of them or separate?
Could do it in one for both because they were agenda sized.
Do I have a second? Second by Brent. Any other discussion on these items as a total?
Just to clarify, are we talking about striping the actual parking slots along Kennedy then?
We can stripe them, yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion on that motion?
Real quick, sorry, would you stripe the Alta Verde too, or are we talking just on Kennedy?
Just on Kennedy, because we're
Okay.
removing it on Alta Verde, and it just turns into a regular side street. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
That'll fit with your motion, John? Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item 11, discussion and or action on right turn, no stop sign added at Community Center Drive and Birch Street.
Yeah, so, trustee, Lopes Sarah had, kind of inquired about this, intersection. I think it was last month. When the pedestrian bridge, was installed in 2011 and that little stub of Birch Street was created. There previously was a stop sign there. The stop sign was removed in 2011. In 2016, a stop sign was put back because of concerns of people not slowing down for pedestrians, bicycles coming through there. And then, oops, clicked on the wrong thing on my own screen here. And then I guess we've been, I don't know. I drove through there a few times over the last couple of weeks, and I'd say it's about a 50-50 chance that a vehicle actually stops when they make that right turn. So I'm not sure if the sign is super effective. I guess the main part of it back when it was recommended to be back installed was so that drivers were aware of pedestrians and bicyclists as they come through that intersection. I think going to the bridge probably isn't as big of a deal, but myself, I've seen people, you know, as they're on their bike, come zooming down the bridge and they kind of cut diagonally across that intersection. So kind of more of just hopefully a heads up for people to be aware that something might be coming from their left. So proposal was to put into the right turn, no stop writing underneath the sign, just so kind of like that picture there. That's a stop sign in the city of Wausau, where, you know, the primary turning movement is to turn right. It's not really to go straight or left at the intersection. So I guess it's a small change, but it is something we could do to, I guess, maybe help keep people from blowing a stop sign, I guess.
So I brought this up because as I've been driving one of my children to school, I come through there and I've noticed a lot of vehicles that aren't stopping, they're rolling right. And I don't think we should change the law just because people aren't following it. But it did make me wonder, like, do we really need to restrict movement for people that are turning right? Anybody coming off of that pedestrian bridge technically should be stopping as well if they're crossing. They have a stop sign there. So I thought it'd be something that we could discuss. The committee feels about it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a crosswalk there for sure, and at least a stop line as well, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So my understanding of state statute requires that you shall stop prior to a stop line or a crosswalk. So I don't think we can make that a right turn, no stop unless we want to get rid of the stop line and the crosswalk. Because I think then we would be telling some people to do something contrary to state law.
Sure.
So I don't know if we want to leave those there and then maybe just change it to like a yield sign. So where if they turn right on a yield sign, they would have an obligation to yield, which would then still obviously take into account the crosswalk. I don't know how hard it is to get paint off the ground to get rid of a crosswalk and a stop line. I just don't think you can do right turn, no stop, and then give people permission to just drive through the crosswalk.
Yeah.
So a yield sign might accomplish the exact same thing, but then still give the driver the due regard necessary to clear the crosswalk before they drive through it.
Is the crosswalk though here? The stop line is here on the, looking at that intersection picture? I don't see a crosswalk.
I don't see
I
crosswalk.
There's a crosswalk on the ground there by that stop sign. I could be wrong, but
Yeah,
I'm
that-
positive there's a
That
crosswalk.
Google image doesn't show it, but there is a
There's
crosswalk.
crosswalk on the ground there, so
Yeah.
that would be my only concern. I'm all for like, yeah, no one stops there anyway, so like make it a yield sign, but then at least it puts some duty on the driver to ensure that that crosswalk is cleared, and then also we're not encouraging people to drive through a crosswalk with the right turn, no stop.
Yeah, the crosswalk's actually back, so it's like From the street view, the crosswalk's like underneath, you know, would be at the person's foot as they're taking that picture.
And that's why I remember it, because it's kind of in a goofy spot.
Yeah,
It's really in a goofy spot. That's what I recognize. I'm like, I think it's there, so.
yeah. I put in there, this section of Birch Street is slated for reconstruction and I think it's 2028. Have this in front of me, what I write down. So, I mean, at that time, we can kind of fix that a little bit too, to make sure it's not as kind of wonky with how the crosswalk and everything comes together.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all support of it, just instead of a right turn, no stop, make it a yield sign.
If you did yield, is there any way to like yield for pedestrians or something that would jog the person to know that? Cause my concern is if I'm heading south, I'm on the left. And if you don't stop making the right turn and I'm heading left, you're gonna hit there. So coming off the bridge, I can see the car and I might have to stop, but if I'm heading south, I'm on the left side, right in their turn radius. Which if they yield, a yield sign, you know, that, I mean, it still indicates something to the driver, but if you weren't familiar with the area, would you know there's more pedestrian traffic there because the pedestrian bridge is 100 yards in front.
Yeah.
We also know that this is the way that cycling without age takes to the ice cream shop. They've expressed this as their primary way to get to the ice cream shop.
And do we see a lot of traffic coming from the bridge area there? To be honest with you, when I drive through, I see a squad parked there every once in a while watching traffic and stuff, but I don't really see other traffic come through there significantly.
I agree. I used to do that, go down there all the time, and I did actually always stop. I was one of the ones that actually stopped, but I hardly ever see any traffic down there. Sometimes a squad car, once in a while a bike or two, so I think a yield sign would be good. I always wondered why we still had that stop there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just depends on the, there's days where I will go to the ice cream shop with my kids and take the bridge over and, you know, you meet quite a few people going back and forth on, you know, a nice August afternoon, but yeah, right now, I know there's a whole lot of traffic going.
And we have a lot of T intersections in a lot of neighborhoods with no traffic control whatsoever, and they just function as yields. And knock on wood, those seem to do okay. I mean, on the other side of the high school there's like pretty much every intersection at the end of every neighborhood is a T intersection with no traffic control. So not even a yield sign there, so then obviously the law requires you to yield. And generally those do okay, as far as I know, unless chief disagree, there's a lot of crashes or something I don't know about.
I think yield is, I mean, it would be fine too. And I would say, my closest calls here in the village of Weston have been at stop signs where people have not stopped. So, or they have stopped and just kept going. So.
Any other thoughts, committee, on this item? Well, I would entertain any motion. I'll have to begin if anybody has a motion they would like to make.
I'll make a motion to change the stop sign at that intersection to a yield.
I have a motion from Olson to change the stop sign to a yield sign on Community Center Drive at Birch Street.
Oh, okay.
And I have a second from Beck. Is there any other discussion to that? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
We will jump back to communications received. Everything.
There was the two in the packet that Michael had mentioned about Weston Avenue.
Let's see.
Acknowledge reports from departments. Item number 5, code enforcement update and an update on the raise and repair order for Aspen Street apartments located at 4911, 5003, 5007, 5111, 5103, and 5107 Aspen Street.
So we got a couple items under the under this. So in the packet, we've got the code enforcement update for what has taken place so far this year. Our current case list is in there. Got 52 open and active code enforcement cases. In January and February, 9 cases were created. 4 cases were closed. 13 of the 52 have been referred to Mountain Bay Metro and are at various stages of enforcement, monitoring citations, municipal court. Of the 4 complaints in February, 1 of those has been closed. And then the list can be seen on page 16 of the packet. And then I just have a verbal update for the raise and repair order at Aspen Street. Management is continuing to move forward with their electrical repairs on the water heaters. 2 of those are being replaced via permit that were applied for last month. We haven't closed out those inspections on those replacement water heaters yet. The expense of the electrical is per management lengthened their time frame on repairing them. So I'm continuing to communicate with management on progress. I have not been able to get back in there in the month of February as I had hoped, but with our workload in February, it was relatively tough to get in there. Our next agenda item took up quite a bit of effort in February, so we'll be following up with management in March, and we can keep that on the agenda moving forward as far as the Aspen Street properties are concerned, so we see better compliance there. My recommendation.
We had any complaints or concerns raised recently from any of the tenants at those buildings?
Not at those apartments, no. So we've got no new cases this year.
Did we have many from the tenants last year?
Historically, the tenants are relatively quiet there. The raise orders were really initiated by the fire department for non-compliance with the fire alarm systems that were non-functioning in the apartments. And then obviously, you know, the mold issues that were in the basement, which they've got a little bit left to do from my last inspection in there, but most of that is just removing some additional wood paneling that's in there that is easier to remove that than it is to treat it in place. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that we're kind of the ones initiating this. The big thing for me is I just want to make sure that residents aren't coming to us saying, hey, why aren't we making progress on this? So that's good to hear. Committee, any discussion on code enforcement update or the Aspen Street apartments as a whole?
I'm new, so I'm gonna ask a question. What is it, when it says enforcement suspended, does that mean that they're actively working on it, so we're just kind of holding?
The enforcement suspended
Yeah, what does that mean?
classification for those is typically a seasonal designation.
Okay,
If it's something in the exterior of the premise, it is difficult to do it when it's 20 below out. So I think it's really tough to, continue to issue citations on something that when the conditions are not favorable for them to clean up their yard.
we kind of wait for the weather to
Yep.
clear come spring and then we go back out
Yep.
on those.
Yep.
Okay, and how long do they stay on this report? Like, there's one way at the bottom that was from 2021, like how long do they stay on the report before we?
Well, there's definitely had some stuff that we're gonna talk about in the year-end report as far as a lot of those longer cases. It didn't make the final edit though, so, but the oldest cases in the system are there predominantly because they're a loss of life in the family, or they're stuck in probate, like the case with 3020 Mount View, that was stuck in probate for an extended period of time. And then the owners didn't pay taxes on it. So, it takes the county 7 years typically to take that property. So 3020 Mount View has been vacant for 10, 12 years now. So the one on Ross Avenue, that was also a death in the family. They had made significant changes or updates, and they kind of have a salvage yard in the backyard. So in 21 and 22, they made really good efforts. And then we had some staffing shortages. So it really has been a lack of time to deal with some of these cases. The building inspectors, we have statutory requirements for conducting inspections on, construction permits. So that does take a front seat on a priority scale when it comes to some of the code enforcement stuff. And so, as we'll see in the next agenda item, I really wanted to highlight the amount of work that we've been able to accomplish over the last 2 years with the assistance of Mountain Bay Metro. So we're really hoping this year, we've already got a game plan for those longstanding cases, for sending out letters this spring, informing them that we haven't forgotten about the conditions of the property and they're going to need to make progress on it.
And we always work towards voluntary compliance. We want people to see the advantages of taking care of these nuisances rather than us just coming in and doing that. We have had situations where we have brought in the dumpster and cleaned up properties, and it's a larger issue than just getting rid of the stuff sometimes.
No, and I get it. It's just,
So we are
there's a
always.
lot of staff time when they have to keep running out, making the calls, doing the reports, so.
But long-term, if it's voluntary and the people take ownership of that, the success rate is better than using the stick.
Did we hire somebody to go out and kind of look at the properties too? Did we do a new hire?
We had done we had changed slightly before we had brought on Audrey and had it more of a code enforcement.
Yeah, that's
And
what I wish they had posted or.
That didn't work as well. So yeah, now it's kind of shared within the whole planning and development.
Thank you for answering that, by the way.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? I had just a couple. So 1710 Rosenbach, discussed that the male resident there has had some criminal issues. I checked through open records out there involving that man, and it appears his probation has been revoked. He's incarcerated and he still has more open cases. I guess one of my concerns there is that we don't let something continue to fester and bother the residents in that neighborhood because the guy is up to bad things. I certainly understand it causes issues for the other people living in that home, but I don't know that it's going to get any easier for him considering he's incarcerated. 5902 Stella, can you help me understand, I guess, the new owner refusing to comply and what options we have with somebody refusing to comply specific to what his issue is?
It's not a new owner. So essentially this goes way back to before any of us were here. So in the early 2000s, the Plan Commission approved basically a storage unit, self-rental kind of place on Stella. That was to Stan Budleski. So back when Jared was on staff, he and I opened a zoning case there because essentially in digging through the minutes of the approvals, Stan had stated that he would basically install curb, landscaping, all that. Because back before I became my position, a lot of the stuff came in on napkins and essentially, so a lot of stuff was done during the middle of the meeting and there wasn't a lot of records, like we didn't have site plans, things like that. So in the minutes, I found that he had stated he would do that. So we started a case with him working on it and had been working on it and then became sick. So he did put the curb in. I think the only thing left is landscaping
Curbing and pavement were installed, yes,
before he passed away. So his widow has the property and she's just not been very, she was very upset that he passed away, so she has not been talking to us. So that's a zoning thing that we just need to follow up on. So it'd be in a zoning enforcement.
I tried to leave some anonymity in there with.
I respect that. I did drive down there and I saw that there's some, I guess, junk furniture laying around on the site. And I'm not positive it's mold, but it looks like on the north side of the building, there's a lot of mold along the building. Just something that to be aware of, but I understand that's a very complex issue. And then 4104 Shorey, with that house being basically abandoned. So it appears that property is basically being used as a farm, and then there's an old farmhouse that nobody's occupying. So with that house not being occupied, do we have anything that they're required to tear that building down if they're not trying to occupy it, or can it just exist as a abandoned home? Or
We wanted to pursue raising that structure over the last several years. The property owners basically, in face-to-face conversation said that we don't have the money to do it. So whatever you're gonna do to it, you're gonna have to take care of raising and removing the structure. So that again is staff time and legwork that we just didn't have access to with staff changes and the amount of housing permits that we had last year. So
do we have, I guess my question is, is that something that like they're required to do if the building is not habitable? Are they required to tear it down or fix it?
yes, so when the raise or repair order is issued, they have the option of, repairing it, but in this case, it's beyond repair, so it has to be raised. So once we serve them papers, which the plan with this property in particular, is that we're gonna issue papers this year, and by the end of construction season, the structure will be removed at that property.
On their dollar, not ours.
We have to take care of the upfront costs and then assess that back to the property. So they'll end up paying for it via property taxes
Okay.
due to how the ordinance is written. And that comes from state statute in 66.
Oh, and then that's fine. I'm just thinking if it's their property, it's their responsibility. So
Initially it is.
we do it up front and then they get assessed it on their property taxes at the end of the year.
Yep.
Okay.
And if they chose to sell the parcel, then that cost would carry with whatever the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because
It's assessed,
it's a
yeah.
large piece of property, so.
Yeah, there's 40 acres there that property that is.
Okay, thank you. That answers all my questions. Did anybody else have questions on item number 5? Do you want us to acknowledge the report? Do I have a motion to acknowledge on item 5A?
I will make the motion to acknowledge the report as presented and direct staff to place the report on file.
A motion from Beck. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, 2025 year-end code enforcement report.
So this is a new year-end report that we created, really essentially to try and really statistically highlight what has taken place over the course of the year. Like I had stated, with Mountain Bay Metro's assistance, we accomplished a lot of enforcement activity last year. That cover page is from one of the cases on Business 51. So those are some of that's kind of our big one for the year, which it's currently under construction and being repaired. So that was one of the older cases on the list, one of the 6 oldest ones. So again, that property was an elderly couple that just wasn't maintaining the property and did not have the physical ability to do anything with it. So they vacated the premises last year and the property changed hands. So we're really happy to see this one moving in that direction. So so a lot of what we have in here is just, data from the system and some highlights on page 2. I said it's in the packet. I believe everyone does have a hard copy of that. So if anyone has gone through the item previously and has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions. It was really just spent the last 2 months working on this to try and get a product that really just is it. We've made positive improvements, and I'm pretty excited about it. With the amount of cases that came in over the last 3 years, kind of skipping forward to page 7 of the report. I've got those are our cases that have come into the system. You can see we've got over the last 3 years, we've got a very large spike in volume. So, 600, almost 700 complaints over the last 3 years. And we've only got the 52 in the system of active cases. So there is a difference between complaints and cases. So if a complaint comes in for an existing case, then we'll add it to an existing case versus working 2 cases concurrently in the system. That's how we have done it in the past. So, but like I said, really excited about it. There's definitely room for improvement as we go through the rest of the document here. I mean, we could definitely, we're tracking, how long it's taking us to get to initial inspection in the system. So, I mean, there's definitely some analytics behind, where we can improve. So, getting to inspections faster is definitely something that we really want to try and accomplish. I mean, obviously, like I said, it comes down to time. The 2 officers from Mountain Bay that help us out, they do have other principal duties 9 months out of the year. And so it really does come down to staff at Mountain Bay Metro it's very active during the summer, and it kind of tapers off, especially when it gets cold out. So we're really happy about the report. Just to be able to communicate what's going on with code enforcement for everyone. So our big case it's another big one on the back 10th page of the report. This was the fence that could be seen from Schofield Avenue, just west of Von Kennel. on the north side of Schofield Avenue. So that's Holly Avenue is what that's all addressed off of, and that was, I believe an automobile tire had gone through the fence and destroyed part of the fence, and the property owner there did not want to repair that section of the fence. It turns out the fence is part of the condo association for all of the two-family homes on Holly Avenue. So we had to send letters to every single property owner on Holly Avenue with raise and repair orders on the fence. So because there was a lot of boards that had been missing over time. So but we got really good responses from some of the property owners, and the big hole in the fence, was the original goal, and that's been accomplished. So.
Thank you. I think this report's awesome, and just the fact that this photo's on the front is a good example, because I had no idea where this was, and I drove by that building yesterday and I was like, oh, we have this under our inspections, but this looks pretty nice, like they're working on it. So the fact I can't even recognize that.
Yeah, so I kept it on there because they hadn't pulled the permits and started the work until this year. So that was really, one of the big ones from.
It's a good example of how your work is getting those things done, because otherwise that would have been a bad nuisance for that neighborhood. So it's great to see all this work. I'm very appreciative that you guys do have that partnership with Metro to, especially during those summer months, get that stuff checked on. And you guys are, walking that fine line between holding people accountable and getting things done, and recognizing that people go through difficult circumstances. And we want to respect that. I think the big thing is just making sure that we balance that with the needs and concerns of the neighborhood and people living in those areas. So, yeah, but I love this report. Good job.
I'll echo Louis, same thing. I think it's important, now that you set the bar this high, it's not anymore, right? But I just think it provides perspective. One of the last things you put on the last page is, data tracking and reporting purposes allow more efficiently, accurately making decisions. We're not just making decisions off of thin air. There's, hey, do we need more staff? Hey, do we need this? And this gets kind of concrete data to do that. So yeah, I think this is great. I think it provides perspective. As a committee or even just the citizens, sometimes we forget that we're not the only complaint in the world, and that, what we think should happen overnight doesn't always happen overnight. I think this goes a long way to kind of provide some information to people to realize, like, yeah, there's a lot more going on than you probably realize.
Is this available to the public, or is this more an internal?
It will go on the website eventually, but first we wanted to give it to you. It'll go to Plan Commission next week, and because they have some of the zoning aspects of it, and then the village board will see it also this month. So it'll be available on the website.
It already is, actually. It's in our packet for tonight, which is on the website. So I mean,
Yeah.
if someone clicks into our packet, they'll find it in the middle there, so.
They will.
But we'll make it a separate link off our site.
Yeah, so we had Audrey did a lot of the graphics for this.
Yep.
So,
Don't wanna change
She
her.
did all the
She did all the
graphics.
graphic work. She's.
so the code
Otherwise-
violation enforcement process, we figured that could be a good website visual, so that'll be pulled out and put on. We don't really have, it's a very small page for code enforcement. It's basically like press this button and fill out your complaint. So this will go along with the guide for residential ordinances that we have.
We can make a post on it then too.
Anything else? Katrina, anything from you? Okay. So I got like entertain a motion to acknowledge the report.
Motion.
Motion from Olson. Kirk. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Hi.
Carries. Thank you. Unfinished business discussion, item number 7, discussion and or action on proposed amendments to chapter 50 nuisances.
So this evening, everybody got at their table a paper copy. Katrina had sent in some good questions and we had followed up back with answers, and it might be a good place to start with just these questions. So Katrina, we gave everybody a copy back just so they could see what those questions were and responses. Now, Audrey, do you have the ordinance pulled up? You'll make notes as we go through these.
I certainly can.
So the first one about the tree limbs, I know we talked about that last time. Roman, do you just want to follow up on then,
On 9.
yeah, what you think is the best height then, given what our authority is?
So, in reviewing this deeper, there's kind of so we've got certain roads that are, so like Business 51, for example, that falls under WSDOT jurisdiction for height requirements. So we can't very well approve something lower than their height requirements on Business 51. So their WSDOT requirements are 17 feet above the high point of the traveled way for utility lines. Okay. And then it gets into, what is considered a maximum height for truck traffic. So at 13.6. So, the National Electrical Code, which does not exercise jurisdiction over public utility. So we've got, we shouldn't have any electrical code, something that falls under the electrical code jurisdiction crossing over the public way. Pretty much all of those are going to be utility lines, okay? But the National Electrical Code states 18 feet above roadways or per utility. And then it decreases it for 12 feet above driveways and then 10 feet above pedestrian walkways. So obviously, we have more of a jurisdiction there with the National Electrical Code as it's moving on to private property. WPS, the electrical provider, based on the voltage, it differs on the height above the road. So their minimum for transmission lines and lower voltage is 15'5" clearance. Okay, and that goes up to 16. So it's 15'5", 16, and then 16. So, so ultimately, it comes back to what we can actually adopt as code, right? So, I think the kind of the easiest way to do it is just to put a reference in there that it needs to comply with the requirements of the jurisdiction that has authority over it. Okay, if it's transmission lines or utility lines, we can put the verbiage in there that it specifically lines up with that. If the utility changes their standards, then we have to go make sure that we've updated our ordinance to specifically reflect those standards. So it definitely 13 feet though is not, I mean, that's sub what the standards are for the utility and WSDOT. So I don't have a specific answer for you on this topic other than we don't want to adopt an ordinance that's above our authority to adopt. So.
But you're thinking maybe all limbs of trees.
The tree limbs, those, per brief conversation with Michael, the tree limbs should be 14 feet minimum. Obviously, there's less voltage in tree branches than there is in power lines. So, but 13.9 is really, there shouldn't be anything under 13.9 in the right of way. Okay, because that's where the WSDOT standard kicks in for clearance, so which is 3 inches above whatever the height is of the vehicle. And so at 13 foot 6 inches, that's maximum height where you don't need an over height permit for the truck. All right, so, and then it's 3 inches above that maximum height at 13.9. So 13.9 is really the absolute lowest.
Are you saying then though it would be both 14 feet? So right now it says less than 14 project over and less than 14 feet above any public sidewalk or less than 10 feet above street or other public place.
Yeah, so those two numbers are backwards. So it
Okay.
should be 14 over the street
Over
and
the sidewalk.
over the sidewalk, 10 feet over the sidewalk, 14 over the street. Because we don't need the clearance that high over the street for the tree branches. Or
So-
over the sidewalk, I apologize.
And then for wires and cables, you're saying maybe we should make a reference that would say, based on the utility that is in charge of the wires or cables, seek out their guidance instead of us writing that in individually.
That's my recommendation. Or, you know, we write the ordinance to specifically follow and then it gets into a point where it's like, okay, is it WSDOT jurisdiction for it, or is it our jurisdiction off of Business 51? And then looking at the utility requirements. So the height difference is, like I said, is based on the voltage. So the higher voltage transmission lines, those are at 18 feet. So.
My only concern is if we make it specific, I don't always know that we catch it, that we change it right away, and then we're out of compliance with.
That's my concern
Yeah,
with making it specific. So if the reference is in there, I think that's the best avenue to go on it.
This isn't anything that I may, I guess, just you guys draft what you think is best and then bring it back to us in May. I mean, this is well outside my knowledge, and I mean, I don't really have enough information to say anything about anything, so I think it'd be best that you guys draft what you think is appropriate and then bring it back to us to look at.
Isn't that giving you the minimum though? So in the case of like, say, we have major storm and WPS loses a bunch of lines and they don't bother with one of the lines and it's hanging under 13 feet, then the ordinance can come into play. That you can require them to actually do something with it.
We could,
So
We
I
could
think
use it
that's
in that.
what it's for, is if somebody doesn't, I mean, because we have it all around where they don't always come back and,
yeah, from a temporary repair standpoint.
right.
Yep.
So I think that's what that section of the code is for. When something happens that it's lower than what it's supposed to be, but you need some kind of a number. So that's probably why it was put at 13 if we had 14 elsewhere.
I don't disagree with you there. So,
we'll bring that one
Yeah.
back then. Number 5, we'll switch, but number 9, you'll see a revision to. Number 15, the flammable liquids violations. Jen put in this email back some good language that we can change that to. That any violation of this code or applicable state law relating to the storage of flammable liquids is prohibited. Repeated or continuous violations shall constitute a separate offense for each day that the violation continues. So we would switch out the language in there that's a little more ambiguous to this language, if the committee would be good with that.
I really liked the wording that Jen used on that one. It made it much more clear to me.
Great. Then we go to number 8 under 103. No, construction sites. See abandoned garages, garbage, sorry. The print is small.
She just had a question on that.
Okay, so we're good on language on that one. Okay. Did anyone else through, at least through number 8, have any other questions on section 103? And the lawns and yard maintenance? That was also kind of a clarifying question. Not sure if there would be a necessary to change any language in that. The piece about the cost, we've talked about that before, and maybe we could strengthen that language. Katrina had mentioned about just talking more about how that calculation for the cost is put together. So stating cost shall reflect the actual expenses incurred by the village, including labor, equipment, contractor fees, and administrative costs. We can get that added in.
Okay, written in our fee schedule for the year, how we calculate costs for different things.
We have the fees in there, but the calculation isn't necessarily shown.
Does it show like?
It just
do the
says
co-
as
like-
cost.
Okay. So do we wanna, I guess, tie ourselves down to a cost formula, so to speak?
Well, if it just reflects actual cost, then we would just provide them the receipts of the actual cost. Right, the cost of the contractor to mow. The cost of the new.
I just was curious, I knew we had a fee schedule, I didn't know if it was rolling down in there what we can or will charge for things.
And then that last one, authority to assess cost, that was also more of a general question. I'm not sure if we needed a language change for that one either. Regarding abatement.
That one was drafted by the village attorney back when we first put the summary and non-summary abatement processes in there, and it's basically defined processes. You have to go through this whole process. Noticing requirements and things like that, so there's a more steps to that one. But they also, it's the cost, so it would be, typically we end up with a contractor on those ones in some shape,
Yeah, typically staff is not
knocking buildings down.
taking care of the mowing on those cases.
Well, this is just in general, so this would be the non-summary or summary abatement.
Oh, yeah.
So this is not lawn stuff, it's gonna be
Yeah,
knocking buildings down or
yeah, those would
fixing a
be
building,
contracted. I mean, we've taken care of the hoarder cleanup.
yeah.
um,
You still had a contractor involved.
with the assistance of a contractor.
So that one was kind of a hybrid where we used staff time and had a contractor.
Yeah.
But it all gets outlined when they get billed, so documentation, probably more so with that sector.
So Jen, I think you might have just answered my question, but kind of related to the code violations we were just talking about with someone who's having a building raised, if we do end up doing that, are they notified? Is part of the process to notify them of the expense that they could incur? Would that maybe motivate some people to try and take care of it on their own?
Usually, it can. There's a larger process. So basically we either have to, it depends on what it is. So typically it requires a writ of inspection. So Roman has to If the landowner isn't gonna let him in there to basically do his inspection, to determine that it needs to be raised, he has to go to a judge and get that. So there's paperwork that has to be filed. There's a lot more paperwork, and they get notified. We have to go through the certified mail option. So you know that they get the notices, and it basically states, you know, you have 30 days to file an injunction or come talk to us essentially and put a plan in place. Otherwise, after 30 days, we can actually do what we outline in that process. So if it needs to be raised, then we're hiring somebody to raise it. So yes, they do know that there's gonna be an expense.
Does the committee have any other items that they wanted to discuss? Or this to be brought back later?
On page 58, talking about, let's see, where I'm there. Loud noises. And it says something about bands. I wanna say it's 50.104. 5, 2, Roman numeral 5, music bands practicing in residential areas between the hours of 8 PM and 7 AM. I know it's really weird, but if we do that park in Kennedy Park, that music band, I know that runs probably later than 8. Then if that's considered a band, wouldn't we be violating our own ordinance? So does that have to be adjusted? Maybe it's not that big of a deal, but I just noticed that and I thought I would bring it up.
Would it be different for those that are seeking special event permits, because all of those would be later?
Yeah, this came actually out of a focus group and neighborhood back in the early 2000s when we had neighborhood meetings. There was an issue actually, I think it was in your neighborhood actually, Lisa, where there was a band practicing and they could actually hear it through the pipes in different areas of the neighborhood. And so back in the early 2000s, we had focus groups on a number of different things, and the noise ordinance was one of them. And that's where that regulation kind of came up from.
So not a concert at all?
It wasn't, no, it's basically similar to the other things that are going on there. So it's things that people would be doing in their homes or outside their homes in a residential area. Like power tools and things like that, mowing their lawn.
Should it maybe say musical bands
reword that at
practicing,
all?
excluding concerts or excluding?
Is a
Including
park,
special-
what is a
residentially
park
zoned,
zoned? I was
though.
gonna say, what is a park zoned?
They're not
Oh.
residential.
Yeah, so then this whole section wouldn't apply, cause all this,
Yeah.
everything listed here is residential zones only.
We're
so
only
they're-
gonna enforce it in a residence.
Yeah, so I mean, technically none of these would even apply if it's not zoned residential, the way I'm reading it.
Right.
Just, I guess had wanted to clarify that. And then on 59, and I don't know if it's anywhere in there, but with Kennedy Park and having maybe some nighttime tournaments, do we have to include an ordinance in there that they have to stop play at a certain time? Cause I mean, that's the purpose of having lights at Kennedy Park, right? So they can have some night games, and I know baseball sometimes goes kind of late. I don't have a baseball kit anymore, so. So do we have to put anything in there somewhere about that the games have to be completed by 10 o'clock at night or 10:30 at night or 11 o'clock at night?
I
or
think the
whatever?
parks actually have a closing time.
Do they?
I don't know, I'd have to look. That's in a
Well, and I don't
different
know if
section
that-
of the ordinance, but I thought that they're not open 24 hours.
And that could be, and I don't know if
That
that's
may have
something we
been
have to add on to that agreement that we would have ever assigned that their games have to be completed by a certain time, just to be. I mean, obviously I'm close to that area, but you also have a lot of homes that are closer, and I just don't want it to come up later. As long as we're reviewing the ordinances, I mean, it just makes sense to, does that have to be included somewhere?
And I would guess Steam's got games that go past 10.
Not normally, I don't think. I mean, for football, even if they start at 6, 7, 8, they're usually completed.
Okay.
I don't really.
I believe parks are open till 11 o'clock. By ordinance. I'm reading this correctly, so then,
It's a good point though. We can
Yeah.
bring that one up and make sure we're
I just want to make sure we're aligned that we don't have issues later on. That way people ask, we can say that with all the Kennedy, we've reviewed all of that and it's all good to go. So it should just align. That's all I could get through. That's a lot. to
Yeah,
read.
it is a lot to read.
Between last time we talked about this 2 months ago and now I still had to review it and there's a lot in there.
Or John, anything you guys? Right. Katrina, anything else?
Nope, that was it.
We'll plan on bringing this back at our next meeting. Do you need a motion, Jenny?
No, that's okay.
Okay. All right, everybody good, then we'll move on. Move on to item number 8, discussion and or action on proposed e-bike and e-moto ordinance.
There was a draft ordinance that the MPO has put together in the packet. The MPO planner had said that this mirrors what the state regulations are regarding e-bikes and e-motos. So it's being shared with all of the municipalities within the MPO to get input, and then it will get taken back through their bike and pedestrian and then board.
Did anybody have any discussions on the proposed ordinance language?
This is through like every municipality.
We would, all the municipalities in the MPO would like to adopt similar
Mhm.
language as
So it's-
similar as it can be.
Right, from here to Wausau.
Yeah, you don't, not everyone necessarily knows when they change municipalities.
I think most people don't know when they change. Great. Any discussion? Do you want us to?
If we felt good about the ordinance, you could make a motion just to say that you don't have any recommended changes at this time, and I can bring it back once MPO would officially adopt it.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Before that,
Okay.
Chief Hunt, do you have any feedback on it? Did they already engage the police chiefs in this process, or have you guys had a chance to?
They haven't, I just know all the municipalities are working on it jointly together. So, but they have not come to me specifically. I don't know if
Did you get a chance to look at this? Do you have any thoughts, like from an enforcement perspective?
I didn't go through the whole thing.
That's- I didn't read the entire thing word for word either. But
It's interesting you said that because that was the only note I put down about enforcement and to ask him what he thought.
yeah, I mean,
That was the only
I
question I had.
fully recognize, I know nothing but e-bikes, so like. I mean, yeah,
I just think it's a good thing that all municipalities are on the same page with this and everyone's working together with it because it is an up and coming deal for us. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important we get ahead of it because it's only becoming more popular, so people know what the expectations are when they go from community to community are shared and similar.
It's also a good opportunity to me to point out in the back of the room, we do have from our bike and ped open house, which was last week, Thursday, the draft network plan for pedestrian and bike on the one map there. And then we have the issues and opportunities that were identified thus far. So we've had the 2 open houses and the survey input. So just talking about bike and pedestrian accommodations, that's kind of where we are with the master planning process and with the draft plan network. It kind of dovetails this because the better our network, the more opportunity we'll have for bikes to be out and about.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
make a motion that we don't have any feedback. I use with the caveat pending review by Chief Hunt. If he comes up with anything that you'd like passed back, or regardless of that, I'd make a motion that we have no feedback.
A motion from Weston. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Second from John. Any other discussion?
And we're motioning to table this until it's completed and then bring it back.
We're motion. I want to make.
Yeah.
Right, you wanna clarify your motion?
Saying that we don't have any feedback to pass back to the committee pending review by Chief Hunt if he has any feedback. And then my understanding is it'll come back again after the committee does all the feedback collection.
Because they might make changes based on what other municipalities.
Okay, so this is more an FYI. This is the status of where we're at.
Yeah, unless there was feedback that we wanted to change it somehow.
Valerie, Audrey, is that clear enough? Okay, thank you.
Oh, Valerie.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any announcements?
I made the one announcement that the boards are in the back, and I've been making the same announcement at the end of all meetings, which I will until May. But if you haven't already completed the comp plan survey, we really appreciate it if you would complete it. If you have completed, will you go to your neighbor's house and make sure that they've also completed? Or your friends, or, you know, other family members. So I have postcards if anyone needs any.
Put it on the couch for my wife to do, so. Remarks from committee members, Katrina. Brent?
Just a thought, I don't know what the committee thinks, but I think it'd be nice if on a meeting basis, we also, I know the chiefs share their department reports with the board every month, but it'd be kind of nice if they get this board, also got this committee, also got to see those on a monthly basis, just to kind of have a really good idea of what the departments are doing, since part of our, I guess you could say, is public safety. I get to see them because I stay for the board meetings, but I don't know that everybody else gets to. It might be a good addition. And then reference, what was brought up in public comment, is that something that we need to look at in the future meeting, or is that being addressed by a more appropriate entity like the village?
Good question.
Is that something that we are looking at? Is that something the chiefs are taking care of right now? Is the board, just want to make sure that it's.
The parking restrictions, chief,
I'm sorry, what?
the parking restrictions.
Overnight.
That already came to. We brought that up one time already to talk about parking restrictions, and it was decided to leave it as is.
We talked about it at board for winter parking, yes.
Yeah.
And that's the question. I just want to make sure if there's something we need to do that it's brought back us and.
We could bring back for the next meeting just a follow-up that we could share the minutes from the meeting where it was discussed at board, so you guys could see that conversation.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't want to see us bring up the ordinance again to debate what we should have the ordinance or the language of it. I would only want us to bring it back if there were changes that needed to be made. So if staff identify that there are changes that need to be made, certainly bring those back to us and we can discuss them. But otherwise, I don't think we need to bring up the ordinance just to discuss it again.
My point is just to make sure it's addressed if it needs to be addressed, and by the proper entity, whoever that is.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Lisa? Any,
I'm sorry, I'm like.
No, you're fine.
No, I don't have anything else.
John, any remarks?
That was the only thing, just making sure that our ordinance was.
Thank you.
As long as you brought up the e-bike, I think it's good to get it in place before summer hits. As long as we're working on it, get it.
Yeah, we'll keep working on that. All right, thank you. Items for the next agenda. Next regular meeting date will be Monday, May 4th at 5 p.m.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. Can I make one more announcement?
Absolutely.
So this Wednesday is our first educational session about the referendum. It'll be here in this room. 11 to 12 is just an open opportunity to have a conversation with staff, and at noon we'll start the presentation, which will be done within an hour along with question and answers, and we will record that and put it on the website following. So if anyone is interested in joining us on Wednesday, that's our first of 4 sessions, or we'll get it posted shortly thereafter.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, and I'm glad that we're doing that. So, without any other comments, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion from Lisa. Do I have a second? Second from Kurt. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:34 p.m.